All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the PSR Florida monthly meeting. This month, we are focusing on liquefied natural gas in Florida. And we have an amazing, I pretty much say scholar in this field at this point. Michelle is the woman to know on LNG in Florida. And so I'm just going to turn the meeting over to her. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. And we're happy to welcome Michelle Allen from Food and Water Watch. Thank you, Michelle. I'll let you take the show.
Thanks, Lakey. Thank you so much to PSR Florida for having us. We have Food and Water Watch in Florida has been working with PSR for many years together, working to ban fracking in the state. And so it's really nice to be here with all of you. And I just really appreciate all the work that we've been able to do with PSR through the years. So happy to be here. I am gonna share my screen. So give me just 1 second to do that. And please give me a shout if the screen is looking funky. But as Lakey said, today we are here to talk about liquefied fracked gas transport. We're going to talk a little bit about kind of what's been happening across the state, but we're really going to spend most of the time focused on what's happening in South Florida. And again, my name is Michelle Allen, and I'm also joined here today by my colleague, Antonio Camejo, who is our South Florida organizer. So he's going to be helping me with the presentation today as well. So Food and Water Watch, we are a national organization. We work to mobilize people to win a fair and livable future by fighting for a livable climate, access to clean drinking water, and safe food. So quick agenda here. First, we'll talk a little bit about the national rise in LNG exports, talk about what's been happening across Florida. But like I said, we're going to spend most of the time diving into the LNG transport in South Florida and what can be done about it. Feel free to, if you've got a question about something, please feel free to just unmute yourself and ask, or you can drop it in the chat and Antonio and I can try to answer questions all along. We are going to try to make sure we finish up the presentation though with enough time at the end for questions and discussion. But like I said, if you've got something that comes up, just please feel free to ask. Okay, so some quick background on gas exports. So the fracking boom in the US has led to an oversupply of fracked gas. So over the last several years, the fossil fuel industry has really prioritized building out gas export infrastructure. Gas is liquefied by cooling it down to minus 260 degrees Fahrenheit. And then in its liquid form, it takes up less space. So the industry is then able to put it into containers and then transport it over long distances by truck, train, or ship to other countries. This build out of export infrastructure is keeping Florida and the US tied to a fossil fuel future, which we all know that we need to rapidly move away from in order to stave off the worst impacts of climate change. But it also poses immediate dangers to people who live near these operations, and we're going to be talking a lot about that later on. And I also just want to say too that throughout this presentation, you are going to hear Antonio and I use the term liquefied fracked gas. Usually you hear it referred to as LNG or liquefied natural gas, but LNG is an industry created term to make it sound nicer and better than what it is. Right? Natural implies that it isn't harmful to the environment or our health, and we all just know that that isn't the case. So we refer to it as liquefied fracked gas. So you'll hear it referred to as that throughout the presentation. All right, so starting out big picture here, looking across the US, this map shows gas export facilities across the country that are either already in operation or under construction or in the early proposal status. So you'll see that there's a really big concentration of existing and proposed facilities in the Gulf region, especially a lot in Louisiana and Texas. So you'll see here that the lighter yellow dots are proposed facilities, and then the darker ones are existing facilities. So as you can see, right, there's a lot happening across the country, but we really are seeing a very big concentration of these in the Gulf region. So let's talk a little bit about what's been happening across Florida. So there are two current liquefied fracked gas facilities in operation. One is in Jacksonville, one is in Miami-Dade, which that's what we're going to be talking a lot about here in a bit. There's one active proposal that's moving forward that's not shown on this map, but that's in Port St. Joe, which is in the Panhandle. And then all the green dots that you see across this map are canceled proposals. So for one reason or another, the industry proposed an LNG operation there, but like I said, for one reason or another, it just did not move forward. But I think what this map really shows, and all those green dots around the state shows, that the industry has shown a lot of interest in building out this infrastructure across Florida, and especially on our coastline. And I think it is telling to the more facilities we will continue to see the industry propose as we move forward, if we do not get, importantly, big policy changes from Congress and the Biden administration. So now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Antonio, who is going to talk a bit about New Fortress Energy's operation in South Florida.
Hi guys, thank you for having us over. So the New Fortress Energy's gas operation in South Florida, it started in 2015 when they built the first gas liquefaction facility in Medley in Miami-Dade County. Since early 2017, they started exporting all their gas through Port Everglades to different locations in the Caribbean. And there's two ways that they're transporting this, via truck and rail, all the way from Medley to Port Everglades. Now, this operation has a serious lack of government oversight of the way that it's being handled right now. The gas export approval from the U.S. Department of Energy is the first thing that they got. They also got an air permit from Miami-Dade County for the liquefaction facility. Now, it should be the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, the one that's overseeing the liquefaction facility. But New Fortress Energy is exploiting loopholes in federal law, so that's not the case. This is what we mean by, a lack of government oversight. Now, according to our research team, these are the two most likely routes that the truck and trains are taking from Medley all the way to Port Everglades. So the train route is the same one that Brightline uses, and the truck ones are I-95. This is crossing, apart from a good chunk of Miami-Dade, it's also crossing Hallandale, Hollywood, and Dania Beach over there up until the border with Fort Lauderdale. This is coming near schools, hospitals. There are a lot of people nearby. I mean, any of you have ever been on I-95 during rush hour, you know how many people we're dealing with. And Brightline is just one accident after another. So these are the same tracks that are being used to transport liquefied frac gas. And I'm gonna give it back to Michelle.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I was having a hard time getting myself unmuted. So let's talk a little bit about the transport, what's happened policy-wise at the federal level, and why this is so problematic. Right, New Fortress Energy's export operation in South Florida is terrible, not just because of its contribution to climate change But this transport of liquefied fracked gas by rail and truck through dense communities is extremely dangerous. Right? This gas is volatile, and if a train or truck carrying it is involved in an accident, the container can be punctured, and this can cause a leak. So if that happens, a leak and an LNG container causes a vapor cloud, which if ignited, causes an explosion up to a mile wide, destroying everything nearby and overwhelming emergency services. So it's very serious. This is dangerous to do anywhere, but especially absurd to be happening in really dense communities in South Florida. And as Antonio walked through the map, right? I mean, this is the train tracks pass, I mean, right through downtown Hollywood. I mean, steps away from businesses, homes, hospitals. I mean, this is really happening kind of right in people's backyards, literally. So it's super dangerous, dangerous anywhere, but very dangerous in South Florida. So on the policy side of things, so how this rail transportation was able to move forward. So the Trump administration gave approval for the transport of liquefied gas in South Florida by rail. South Florida is one of only 2 places in the US where gas has been transported by rail. It's not really been happening. South Florida is one of only 2 places. The other location is in Alaska. Now there's a 3rd location in the US that has been given approval for the transport of LNG by rail. That's in New Jersey. That's also another New Fortress Energy proposal. Luckily, that one has not moved forward. So as of right now, there are 2 places where LNG has moved by rail, one of those being in South Florida. So in addition to allowing these specific gas by rail projects to move forward, the Trump administration also tried to open up the door to much more LNG transport by rail. They filed a new rule, which ultimately was challenged by several environmental organizations, as well as 15 state attorneys general. Notably, this rule that the Trump administration attempted was strongly opposed by the International Association of Firefighters due to the severe risks associated with transporting a volatile substance like LNG by rail. So the good news is that the Biden administration has taken steps to stop that Trump era rule that would have opened the door to more LNG transport by rail. So that is a positive step forward, but it's not enough because the Biden administration has stopped short of revoking the approvals for those 3 locations in the United States where LNG transport by rail is still currently allowed, right, including South Florida. So this was a good step by the administration, but it does not protect South Floridians. Just does not go far enough. We'll talk more about the policy changes we need here in a minute, but ultimately what we need the Biden administration to do is ban the transport of LNG by rail across the country. Okay, Antonio, I am gonna pass this back to you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, before I get started on this, I just want to elaborate on the areas that the trucks and trains are passing through. These are passing near 4 major hospitals, as well as dozens of schools, some smaller, some bigger, and Lauderdale International Airport. It goes all the way around it, apart from, you know, many residential areas. So just to get an idea of how packed and how dangerous this is. So the liquefied gas expansion in South Florida. Last fall, New Fortress Energy doubled the amount of gas they are exporting through Port Everglades. This did not require any approval from government officials. Therefore, nothing is to stop them from expanding it again if they feel like it, because apparently they can do so at will. One of the plans that they have right now in place is a liquefied frac gas storage facility in Homestead. This would mean that the liquefied frac gas that's being sent out from the facility in Medley would both go towards Port Everglades and towards Homestead. So it would cross, one direction would cross all of Broward basically, and the other one would cross all of Miami-Dade until close to the Monroe County border.
Thanks, Antonio. And just to clarify, the federal government has not specified where the storage facility in Homestead would receive LNG, but the proposal in Homestead is not for a liquefaction facility. So, right, I mean, I think we can deduce down where they're going to receive the LNG, because New Fortress Energy's liquefaction facility is the only one in the area. So like Antonio said, it raises a lot of questions over what is New Fortress Energy's long-term plan, and what is to stop them from continuing to expand their liquefaction operation.
So the most recent accidents involving, liquefied frac gas would be 2013. There was an oil train in Canada which derailed and exploded. It killed 47 people, it destroyed 40 buildings. It basically leveled a small town. In 2014, there was an explosion at a liquefied frac facility in Washington State, and hundreds of people had to be evacuated from their homes. If something similar were to happen in this route, it would be thousands or maybe tens of thousands that would have to be evacuated, not just hundreds. And most recently, there was a tanker truck in China that exploded in 2020. It killed 19 and it injured over 100 more. Once again, if the same thing was to happen in this route, the numbers would be much higher.
Thanks, Antonio. Yeah, and I just want to add on for the 2013 oil train derailment, we wanted to add that here because, like we mentioned earlier, the transport of LNG by rail is relatively new and just has not been happening so very often, or in very many places. There's not a lot of examples that we can pull from for, what types of accidents and disasters could occur. But the transport of crude oil is, as a similar substance that can provide, sort of seeing the accidents that have happened there, that can provide some examples for us for what can happen if there is an accident involving an LNG train.
Okay, so in terms of action, it's needed at all levels of government. We need the Biden administration to ban all liquefied frac gas rail transport and to stop permitting these facilities. We can also, on a more local level, the Broward County Commission can halt this operation. They can do so by preventing Port Everglades from being used to ship liquefied frac gas. This is what the petition that we are asking you to sign is focusing on.
Thanks, Antonio. Yeah, that's what we've got. So Antonio just mentioned the sign-on letter that we've got to address to the Broward County Commission. Ultimately, what the County Commission can do to step in here is direct Port Everglades to not move LNG on port premises. So we believe if the Broward County Commission can take this action, they can halt the operation currently. But ultimately, we know what we need in order to stop this facility and facilities like it is action at the federal level. But this sign-on letter, we hope, of course, that PSR Florida will sign on to it. And then if there's anyone else here who represents another organization and you're able to sign on, we would love to have other organizations sign. So I'll put that in the chat. So that's the presentation. Lakey, please feel free to tell me what's next in the agenda, but if we've got time for questions and discussion, we'd love to move into that now.
Sure, we definitely have time for questions and discussion, and then also somebody put in the chat that they just would like to have more information on LNG in Jacksonville, and if it's possible for you to share any info that you might have on Northeast Florida in general.
You know, I will say I don't have as much. Oh, Lizzie, I see that's from you. I don't have a ton of information on the operation in Jacksonville. I have some like links and articles and things that I've compiled that I could dig up and email your way. But I will say I don't know as much about that operation as I do South Florida's.
Thank you. I'll take whatever you got. Thanks.
Lizzie, I'll put my email in the chat box. If you'll just send me an email, and that will remind me tomorrow morning to send you what I have.
And if you want to CC me on that, Michelle, then I can go ahead and forward that information to the people who signed up. That might also be interested in further information. The floor is open, and feel free to come off mute. And if you don't feel comfortable coming off mute and you want to put a question in the chat, I can read it from there. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks, Michelle and Antonio. Question. So what has the Broward County Commission and Miami-Dade County Commission said or done so far about this?
So the Miami-Dade County did give an air permit for the building of the liquefaction facility back in 2015 when New Fortress Energy put in the proposal to build it in Miami-Dade. As far as we have seen, the Broward County Commission never had to weigh in, right? So the Broward County Commission never needed to give approval for the transport of LNG through the county, nor through Port Everglades. So while they haven't had to, over the last few months, we have been working really hard to educate the Broward County Commission on the dangers that this transport of LNG through their county poses. We have sent a lot of information. We have requested meetings several times. Unfortunately, we have not been able to get a meeting with any of the Broward County commissioners. So that's something that we're working really hard to do right now so that we can have some deeper conversations with them about the dangers that this poses.
Okay, 2 follow-up questions. Can you explain what an air permit is? And then the second question is, so if Broward hasn't done anything and it's just transporting through Broward, can Broward do anything? And if so, what can we do to convince them to do something if there's something they can do?
Yeah, this is a good question. So I'm happy to send you a link to the air permit that New Fortress Energy received from Miami-Dade. I haven't looked too far into it because we've been kind of focused on the Broward County angle currently, but it appears to be that they needed a permit from Miami-Dade, like an air quality permit to kind of prove that their facility wasn't going to really harm the air quality of the surrounding community. So I'd be happy to actually pass the link on. You can find it on their website. So on Broward County, what we believe they can do to halt this project is to say LNG cannot be moved on Port Everglades premises because the Broward County Commission directly oversees Port Everglades. So that's the kind of piece that the Broward County Commission has power over this, right? It's the federal government directly that has the power to say yes or no to exports. So Broward County has the ability to kind of say no LNG on port premises. And then it's the power of the state and the federal government in terms of like the road transport and the rail transport. So that's why we wanted to go this route of urging the Broward County Commission to halt the transport of LNG on port premises. We found that's kind of their angle that they can take on it. Okay, great. Yeah, David.
Yes, I'm here on behalf of LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens here in Florida. And my mindset is more on how to educate and motivate members in South Florida or other parts of Florida to be advocates and themselves to learn how to be better climate activists. So I have like 4 questions. They're all about the lessons that we have learned so far and how we can, so I'll just read them all together. One is, are there any lessons that we have learned from those locations in Florida where the terminals have been closed? In other words, did we learn something from the strategies that were used to nullify those? Second question is, and this is for Antonio, does the Miami Climate Alliance have any role in your strategy? Because they are large. The third question is, are there any organizations in Florida, especially green organizations, that have already gotten on board and been supportive of what you are doing? And the fourth question is related to the homestead. Is your strategy related to shipment of LNG and the construction of facilities a separate strategy, or are they all related?
So I'll try to tackle the last question rather on Homestead, David. So we mentioned the Homestead gas storage facility proposal to let folks know that is another proposal for Miami-Dade, but also let folks know we see that as part of New Fortress Energy's strategy to continue expanding their operation. It's not something that we are. It's not currently part of our strategy because it's outside of Broward County, and right now we're hyper focused on getting action from the Broward County Commission. I think the third question was on the Miami Climate Alliance and building alliances in South Florida towards Antonio. So Antonio, I'll punt that one to you.
Hi, David. That's a really good question. At this moment, we're focusing on Broward and on different environmental groups in Broward. Michelle and I, we attended a Zoom meeting of the Broward Climate Alliance recently. We've talked to other local groups in the area, but at this moment, we're only focusing on Broward County for this, not any organization in Miami-Dade. That might change, in the near future, but for now, we're focusing just on Broward County.
I think it's a good point, though. I bet there are organizations within the Miami Climate Alliance that have constituencies and groups that represent folks in Broward. So I think it would be good to reach out to them because I do think that they'd be good allies on this.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely a good idea.
Yeah, Dr. Saf?
Yeah, hi, Michelle and Antonio. I enjoyed your presentation. Thank you. We've heard President Biden speak numerous times on climate change and how time is running out and we got to cut down on our emissions. He's given a lot of lip service to climate change. So, and here, on one hand, we hear Biden talking about the dangers of climate change. On the other hand, we're seeing the expansion of this LNG. So is this nothing but pure hypocrisy coming from the president?
I think there is certainly plenty of that to go around. Yes, I will say, given the war in Ukraine, this discussion around LNG exports certainly gets more complicated. I think it is not complicated for us in Florida, especially for this South Florida operation, because all of that gas is going to the Caribbean, right? I do think that there is an honest conversation to be had about what our allies in Europe need to make sure that they're keeping the lights on and can move away from Russian oil and gas. But ultimately, that conversation that our European allies and the Biden administration need to be having is about rapidly transitioning to 100% renewable energy future. And I'm with you, it's incredibly frustrating to hear the president talk out of both sides of his mouth on this issue of like, yes, this is a major existential crisis that we need to work on and move away and onto a renewable energy future. But at the same time, the policies are not lining up. And the reality is there is a lot that the president can do via executive order on these fossil fuel infrastructure issues, not just LNG. It's very difficult to get anything, to get policies passed through Congress, especially more progressive environmental policies. But the reality is there's a lot that the president can do without Congress, and he's not doing it right now, which is quite frustrating.
Thank you.
I also just wanted to read out from the chat. I'm assuming unless Cecile wants to say all this, but let me just read out for those that are listening and that can't see the chat. Cecile has said, political leaders from Florida believe that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is overseeing the siting, construction, and operation of LNG facilities in Florida, but FERC disclaimed jurisdiction over such operations without a formal rulemaking that would have required developers to file petitions for declaratory order with the commission to determine federal jurisdiction over a proposed project. PHMSA, for those of you that don't know what that is, it's Pipeline and Hazardous Material Safety Administration, was left holding the bag. PHMSA does not perform environmental assessments, and LNG is being shipped in 10,000-gallon ISO containers. The Trump executive order is to allow rail transport for 30,000-gallon rail tank cars. Cecile continues to say, and hold on, I need to admit somebody. Okay. Homestead, which is the other location that Antonio and Michelle referenced, that Cecile has confirmed that at a minimum PHMSA will have jurisdiction over this 270,000-gallon LNG storage facility that is a LNG peak shaving facility. This is not a new Fortress Energy project to our knowledge. And I will, for those that are on Facebook, we will try to put the individual sign-on letter on petition into the chat on Facebook. Finally, there's a lot going on in the chat, so I'm just trying to keep up here. Please feel free to not have me read all this and to try to jump in and make these comments so that people in the listening audience can hear. The proposed Homestead LNG storage facility is located within a designated crash zone for the Homestead Air Reserve. And then one more thing that Cecile has said is that FERC has a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Defense to ensure a proposed LNG facility will not have an impact on a military installation. PHMSA does not have the agreement with the DoD. FERC suggested I contact the DoD. That's okay for them to not put it on a military installation, but to send it right through downtown Miami. That's okay. And then Lizzie's just saying that they're concerned that exports from JAX will increase to Europe during the war. Also, for those of you, Lizzie and others, that might want to tackle and do more in Northeast and West Florida, because I think Port St. Joe is also looking at a possible facility. And PSR Florida is wanting to try to expand the work on LNG in conjunction with Food and Water Watch. And so we have quite a number of people in North Florida and in Northeast and West Florida. So please stick with us and maybe reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat. Anybody who's out there in the listening audience, my email is lakey@psrflorida.org. And we would love to work with people that also want to do North Florida work, so Jacksonville work, and try to expand our knowledge base and some of the advocacy around Jacksonville and Port St. Joe and the Panhandle region. Sorry, that was a lot. So if there's other people that still are wanting to ask questions, and we have until 7:45 and maybe a little after, so feel free to jump in and ask questions or clarify things. I can ask a question, and this is a hard question. I'm really sorry to ask it, and feel free to say I don't really know. So the Florida legislature just passed an omnibus preemption bill, right? And we're all feeling the 2021 preemption legislation that stopped our ability to do local renewable energy resolutions. And now we have this preemption to end all preemption, so to speak, where any business can file a claim against the county or city or the municipality that has an ordinance that they claim, apparently without evidence. Even they don't have to prove, but they can claim that 15% of their profit margin is impacted by the ordinance. Are we thinking that this is going to shape the way the county, the city and county municipalities are responding to our request to block export, transport, and production of LNG? And this, follow-up question to that, which is like the horror of all horrors question. I'm really sorry. But if so, are we thinking then that the federal level is the only way out? Is there any reason to even bother with like a state level campaign?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the first piece on this new preemption bill that the legislature passed, and we expect the governor to sign. The first thing to say is that this preemption legislation is unprecedented. We do not know exactly how the courts would rule on an issue like this, because we just haven't seen it before. One thing that is interesting here, very specific to this situation in South Florida, is the bill language is specific to businesses suing municipalities where the business is within their jurisdiction. And that's the weird thing here, because the argument is, well, where is the profit made? The facility itself is in Miami-Dade County, so not in Broward County. So if Broward County acts, it's hard to say. I do not think it's like a cut and dry case here of like, oh, this stops the county commission from acting on this. But at the end of the day, we don't know exactly how a court would react to something like this, because we haven't seen it before. But I do think there's plenty of room here still to encourage the Broward County Commission to do the right thing and act on this. And they have certainly acted the right way on issues relating to fracking in the past. The Broward County Commission was the first commission to ban fracking locally in the state back in 2016. So they have been on the right side of this issue before. And I do feel confident that when presented with this issue, and given the chance, that they'll do the right thing again. The second part of that question on federal action, we mentioned this during the presentation, that this is in many ways a federal issue, right? It's the federal government who gives the permits and allows companies to export oil and gas overseas. And so we do need action from the federal government, from President Biden and Congress to keep fossil fuels in the ground, ban fracking, ban the transport of LNG by rail, keep fossil fuels on the ground and put us on a pathway to 100% renewable energy. I think that we have to fight both of these fights together at the same time. It's hard to do that, but I think we are running out of time to act on climate change. And so we got to do both of the things at the same time.
Quick follow-up question, and then I will try to read off what's happening in the chat. Again, anybody feel free to speak up so that so that everyone can hear. Only the people that are on this actual Zoom can see the chat. So people who are watching live and who are watching the recording won't be able to see the chat. So if you're trying to share information, just as a heads up, we would love for you to speak up. So follow-up question, would it help at all? I mean, I'm sure that Senator Gary Farmer and others that are in the Broward area would be on board to stop this happening, what's happening right now. So would it help at all for PSR or others who have good connections with any Broward state legislators to ask them to help pressure the Broward County Commission, or is that fruitless, you think?
No, I think that's a great idea, and I think that would be really helpful.
Okay, all right. We will
May I interrupt? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bibi Cantor from Quiet Collier in Florida, and a very devoted member of the League of Women Voters. And have you been in touch with them? Because this is all they do.
We have been in touch with we're going to get in touch with the League of Women Voters in Broward County. Yeah.
I mean, I can't guarantee you, but I have a feeling they're 100% or 99.9% on your team. And they've been doing this since before you were born, literally. My mother was doing this before I was born. So I think that if you work with them and a few other groups, you'll save a lot of time. We have, I think this would be the Natural Resources Committee. Do you know how to get in touch with them in Broward and in?
I was just going to ask that, Bibi, if you could help make that connection, that would be. Yeah, either I can put my email in the chat box, or if you want to.
You have mine because I registered.
Lakey could probably share that with me.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'll share everybody who
I couldn't
registered.
I was going to text you, but I can't find my phone.
Well, I'll get your email from Lakey, and then
yeah, and feel free to. So I am mainly a consumer of information. I am focused on very local things here in Naples. Are you guys participating in Earth? This is kind of changing the subject, but we need you. Have you got? Are you all physicians? Are you all doctors?
This is an open meeting, and so Michelle is from Food and Water Watch, and it is a Physicians for Social Responsibility Florida meeting. But it's open.
I'm not an MD, but I'm married to one. And that's a joke. I'm a doctor's wife. That's a joke, but I think doctors would tend to. The reason I came to this is because doctors seem to be pretty aware of what toxins do to people and noise and all that. So we really and you guys are in Broward?
Yeah, that's good to hear.
So if you're
So
referring to PSR Florida,
we need you on Earth Day here in Naples.
if it's okay with you, if we can get back to the LNG, feel free to, my email is in the chat as well.
I just thought I'd check in and.
Yeah, I'll try to reach out to you for PSR Florida Connect. We would love to connect with you and certainly connect with your husband. So I do, for the sake of time though, want to get back, and there's a lot happening. So I want to steer us back to LNG since that's the topic for today. I'm going to have a hard time keeping up with what's happening in the chat, but I think I've gone back to Cecile saying FERC has an MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Defense Oh, we already read that. Okay. Let me see. Am I missing things in the chat? Okay, there it is. FERC must reclaim jurisdiction over small scale inland LNG facilities. These projects would not get off the drawing board since they would not be able to comply with the federal safety standards for LNG facilities. And then there's just a few updates about what city commissioners in Broward have done in the past. It seems to be that they've been pretty sympathetic. There is a question to Michelle, what about reaching out to South Florida Wildlands Association and asking for their participation? They successfully led the fight opposing fracking in Broward in the past. And then Cecile was saying we have to file an action in federal court against FERC under the APA. And I think that's gotten it all. Lizzie's posted an article in the chat that we'll make sure goes into Facebook. And then I'll try to save the chat and put the resources in when I send out the video recording to everyone who signed up. I think that got it all. If I missed anything, people, please tell me. We're coming down to a close. So if anybody has, one, I think we can probably do one short, maybe not too complicated question. Nope. Okay, well, let me take this time just to say thank you to Michelle and Antonio. Antonio, unexpected gift to have you on. So thanks for jumping in the game here. Good to meet you. I've heard so many wonderful things about the work that you're doing. So I look forward to working more closely with you. It's good to put a face to the name. PSR Florida really appreciates the work that you all are doing. Michelle, I have a reach out sort of that I need to catch up with you on in the next couple days. So I will circle back and I'll make sure that you get the list. And if anybody else wants to come up a mic and just thank our guest speakers, and maybe Howard, our president, would be good. Any of my board members who want to come off their mic and just say thank you, and then we'll close down the meeting and let everybody go.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. It's an ongoing struggle, and we had a commissioner here in Leon County, Bob Ratcliffe, who was on that issue of the piping of the natural gas for so long, and it's just such a tough battle, as a lot of them are. But thank you for your great work, really.
Thanks, Dr. Kessler. Takes all of us, and as I said at the beginning of this meeting, we have really appreciated getting to work with PSR for many years on the fracking fight, and excited to embark on this next one with you.
Okay, good.
All right, thanks everyone. I'm going to stop the live stream and end the recording.